Hi class, Mrs. Calvi here. Quick review on percent of change, or you may also see the terminology percent increase or percent decrease. So the percent of change formula is the amount of change over the original amount. So hold on one second. Okay, so I added in this little image here where it tells you a percent can be used to describe an amount of change. The percent of change is the amount stated as a percent that a number increases or decreases. So if the amount goes up, it would be a percent of increase, and if the amount goes down, it is a percent of decrease. So a lot of wording, I know it sounds like a lot, but once I actually start going over some examples, then you'll understand. So the typical formula you may see is the percent of change is equal to the amount of change over the original amount. Now, if you notice, the formula here that I have up here is slightly different. I have the formula that the percent of change is equal to the difference over the original. So amount of change is the same thing as difference. So in other words, the amount you started with and the amount you were left with, taking the difference of the two, is the amount of your change. Okay, so let's take a look at this example here. It says, last semester, the college enrolled 15 students in its tutoring program. This year, there are 27 students that need help. What is the percent of increase? Well, first of all, we know it's an increase because last year there were 15 students. And this year there are 27 students. So we know that our number of students increased. So we know that it's going to have to be a percent of increase. So all we're going to do is the difference means you're taking the difference between last year's numbers and this year's numbers. All right. And it's going to always be a positive. All right. It's going to be a positive number. So we're not going to say 15 minus 27 because 15 minus 27 would give us a negative number. We don't want that. We want it to be positive. So we are going to take the difference. We're going to start with that larger number of 27 because we already know it's going to be an increase. So we're going to take 27. We are going to subtract 15. That's the difference once we get it. And we're going to put it over the original amount. So the original amount was 15. That was the number from last year. So 15 would be in our denominator here. All right. So now when we do this, 27 minus 15 gives us 12. And then that would be 12 over 15. Now, in order to find out what the percentage of increase is, we need to actually divide, right? So remember, a fraction, the fraction bar means division. So 12 divided by 15. All right, so this is where you can use your calculator for this so you're not making a careless mistake. And if you were to do 12 divided by 15, you would get 0.8. Okay, so that's a decimal or 8/10. We want it as a percentage. So in a previous video, you were taught how to go from a decimal to a percent. In order to go from a decimal to a percent, you are going to move your decimal place 2 places to the right and add a percent sign. And we need to put a placeholder here of 0. So 0.8 or 8/10 is equivalent to 80%. Okay, so 80%. So there was an 80% increase in the amount of students that enrolled in the tutoring program from last year to this year. Okay, so it was an 80% increase of enrollment. All right, let's try another example. Okay, so in this example, it says 27 is decreased to 20. Well, they kind of gave you the clue that this is going to be a percent decrease because they use the word decrease. So it's going from 27 to 20. So we are going to have a percent decrease. We want to know what that percent decrease is. So we're going to take the difference of the two numbers. So we are going to take 27 minus 20 over the original amount. The original amount is the 27 because it started at 27 and it decreased to 20. So our denominator is going to be 27 here. All right, so now we're going to take 27 minus 20, which gives us 7, over 27. This is where you would, of course, use your calculator. You would do 7 divided by 27. You're going to get a decimal. All right. They'll usually tell you what to round to because this decimal actually continues going on. And I'm going to say we're going to round to the nearest tenth. So what I got in my calculator was 0.259. And I'm saying round to the nearest tenth. Okay, rounding to the nearest tenth. So if I wanted to do that, and when I should clarify, when I say round to the nearest tenth of a percent. So I first want to change this decimal into a percentage. I'm going to go out a few more decimal places just so you can see that. All right, so I'm going from a decimal to a percent. Remember, to go from a decimal to a percent, 2 places to the right. 1, 2. So now I'm at 25 and 925 thousandths of a percent. This is where I'm saying round to the nearest 10th percent. So I'm going to round to the tenths place, underline my tenths place, which is the 9, draw my arrow to the 2. That 2 tells me the 9 stays, okay? So rounding this to the nearest tenth of a percent, my final answer would be 25.9%. So my percent decrease was 25.9%. All right, let's try one more. Okay, so here we have 32 is increased to 67. So we know this is going to be a percent increase because we started with 32 and we went up to 67. So I'm going to find the difference between these two. So remember, we're going to start with the larger number, 67 minus 32, and it goes over the original number. The original number was that 32 because we started with 32. So then 67 minus 32, that would give me 35 over 32. This is where I'm going to use my calculator. 35 divided by 32. I end up getting 1.09375. So because this is a percent of change, I need to change this decimal into a percent. So in order to do that, I'm going to take my decimal, move it 2 places to the right. 1, 2. Now I'm going to have a decimal there. This becomes 109.375%. My rule here is to round to the nearest tenth of a percent. So I'm underlining the tenths place, drawing my arrow to the hundredths. That 7 tells me that 3 needs to go up to a 4. So my final answer is going to be 109.4%. So here it was a percent increase of 109.4%. All right, that is it for now, and I will talk to you guys soon.